important things that Paleocultural Research Group tries to do is provide learning experiences for students of all different ages. And this project is a great example of that. We have undergraduate students from Minnesota State Moorhead, we have graduate students from the University of Georgia, from Southern Methodist University, University of Colorado, University of Arkansas, and it's a really dynamic mix of people from all sorts of different institutions, but we all share this common interest to understand something about the history of this place, about the past of the Heart River region. And so we really try to foster not only training in basic archaeological methods and basic research methods, but also an understanding of the cultural context that we're studying.
So this is my first time here working on the plains, and Dr. Mitchell's been a great teacher, and he's really helped me out and showed me the difference in soils here and the difference in artifacts and things like that. And it's been really good. You don't get a lot of opportunities to excavate a large village site like this in the southeast. We have mound centers and some substantial sites. However, most of our stuff isn't on large villages like this. So this has been a really good learning experience for me to be able to not only learn a lot about Plains Village culture, but also excavation in this type of environment.
After digging there, we talk about what we found, and we make hypotheses about how people lived. And it's in an informal setting, so there's nothing that you could say, you know, that's wrong. But you can have this conversation with people who are just as interested as you. In a small university like mine, my advisor's very interested, but my cohort, they are interested in the degree that I'm interested in their dissertations, which is in order to help them complete it, but it's not their field of interest it's not their expertise. Here, I'm surrounded by the experts and can sit down and say, hey, can I pick your brain? And end up being able to, sit down with Craig Johnson and ask him, what did you see when you excavated this in 1970?
Well, I work with a lot of archaeologists in my office, and I've done a little bit of historical archaeology in my educational past, but I haven't done a lot of excavation with my coworkers and with other professionals. I thought it would be a really good chance to learn from people who really enjoy and know what they're doing, and at a site that's got such an interesting history and it's in my hometown. I've always known about it. I've always enjoyed hearing more about the village archaeology and all along the Missouri River, the different villages. I just thought this would be a great experience to learn more.
I've only been here like a day, and it's pretty cool. Everybody here, they're all archaeologists. I'm a Native American Studies major, so it's like learning about it's kind of cold. It's hard. Like for me, I come from home, and the way I was raised is a lot different. So like culturally, it's kind of different, but it's really neat to see all these different methods and the way they do things and the science behind it, which is all brand new to me when it comes to like archaeological stuff and digs and all kinds of terms that I don't know anything about, 'cause this is so far from my field of study. Other than it being our people, it's pretty far from my study. A lot of our cultural stuff has recently been incorporating more culture into our curriculum. So at home and in my field of study, a lot of it is oral history. Well, it's a lot of book learning, but in my own family, I've already come with a lot of my own oral history. So that's kind of how I learn things. Whereas here, it's taking objects and material things and reading those. Whereas at home and in my upbringing, it's more culturally relevant, sound, spiritual, I guess, for lack of a better word.
My roles out here at Chief Looking's Village is to help with the excavations. I help shovel, we trowel down, we make sure our holes are nice and square. I also help to take notes. We record everything that we find in placement and soil types, textures, just about everything that is in each unit we try and record.
Here, I believe I'll take away a lot of the stuff that I learned from the grad students, especially, not just the professors here or Mark, but they tell me, you know, they're here, help digging in the units with us, and they're able to, you know, give us pointers on how exactly to hold a trowel when cutting the silt, or how to keep walls straight, or, you know, some of them have built dug pits before, so it's a lot of help when, you know, Mark's on the other side of the site. Then they can, you know, they're like, oh, you know, the edge of it is right here, so make sure not to go any deeper than that. I think a lot of people, especially in like North Dakota, Minnesota region, don't understand that there is a lot of Native American history and culture that is here, because a lot of it is focused on, you know, after, you know, the areas were colonized. More of, you know, American, I guess per se, American history, but a lot of people don't understand, I guess, that there was a lot more here before Europeans came over.
At the water screening, it's really nice to know, like, kind of how they do that, because I've only dry screened before, so it's about the same, but it is still a totally different experience because the way that you need to dry it out, to dry the artifacts out from being washed in the screens.
So kind of the process of water screening is up at the site proper at Chief Lookings Village. We have the people who are excavating, and they're excavating in 10 centimeter units. So 10 centimeters is about the width of your hand. And we'll take everything from that level and put it in buckets, and everything from that level will get the same catalog number, which helps us organize everything, so we're not mixing artifacts from different units. So those go in buckets, they get brought down here to us from an ATV, and then we take those buckets and put them in the screens.
Once they're screened over there, once all the dirt is removed, they're brought over to the cots that are behind me, and they're kind of rested up there just to get an initial dry, get most of the water off. And then they'll be scraped down to remove the objects that we do want from the screens, and they'll be placed on window screen material. So the same thing you put in your windows to keep bugs out, and then they're laid out to dry fully, so the roots can then be picked out and separated, so we get just the archaeological material, so just the larger sediments of soil that are interesting to us, because they're not, those are brought in by people. Those aren't, you know, normal wind transformed sediments. Those are sterile sediments that people brought in either to prepare a floor or as some other aspect of the house construction. So that's useful information for us to know. And then the artifacts are also separated, and they'll all go down to PCRG's lab, where they'll be sorted based on size and type and possible use, and be evaluated through whatever questions they're trying to answer.
We found a lot more based on like Ken Kamami's work with radiometry and such, and so we can actually see where those pits will be. So we found a lot more of those and found a lot of ceramics, so I'm really excited to work with those collections. We found a lot of potsherds, pottery broken into pieces is referred to as potsherds, and we found a lot that seemed to belong to the same pots, which is really exciting because when we get back to the lab, we can start to piece them back together and actually see and receive more information about what a complete pot looks like. We also found a lot of pieces where we have various zones of the same pot intact in the same sherd, which means we can get a lot of information from that, because sometimes you'll have just broken off pieces of the rim or of the body, but you won't necessarily see what all the decoration on all of the pot looks like as a whole, so that was really exciting. Yeah, so the boat-shaped pot, it's a very unique vessel form. It just basically is sort of ovoid instead of circular, and I know they had found one at Scattered Village previously, but they're really rare and we don't see a lot of them, and they found several pieces of it, so it'll be really interesting to look at that, try and reconstruct it in a lab. So I look at the pottery sherds, we identify the wares and the types and where exactly on the pot they're from, and then I'm looking at specifically construction techniques and decoration, which not a lot of people do, so it's kind of an innovative thing. It's really exciting. I look at how the pots were made and constructed, and I look at the different patterning on them. For example, this one, here you can see in this piece, in this one, actually cord was laid across it to make these impressions. And I look at a lot of details about the cord. I actually look at the space between the cords and how tightly it's wrapped, and all kinds of data that can give me information about the individual potter that made it or the household that produced it. So we can get really detailed information about how things change over time and how vessels were constructed and how people were learning how to make vessels.
My main goal right now is to test a theory about reconstructing dog diet. But before I can do that, I have to figure out a way to discern between dogs and wolves. So I'm very fortunate that Southern Methodist University and the North Dakota Archaeological Association have funded me to come and research these collections and test my methods and my methodology in order to figure out how something like this can tell us about what people ate and trade and interaction in the middle of Missouri and all along the Missouri, and even as far as the Southwest.